Hello, Left Foot listeners, and for those listening in for the first time, welcome. I'm Nicole Giantonio, the founder of Left Foot. The following is a quick sample from our discussion with Lisa Konie, Senior Director of Legal Operations at Adobe Systems. What would be an example of how a firm was able to position themselves for specific work within your organization?
It's a great question. So it's interesting because I've learned a lot over the last number of years in this space. When we did an RFP back in, I think, 2015, we invited a handful of our usual suspects, meaning they were law firms that had done business with Adobe beforehand. We had 2 firms that had never done any work for us, but that through one person or another on our legal management team, we thought it might be interesting to hear what the firms had to offer. And then we had another firm that historically had done some work for Adobe, but it hadn't been much in kind of the near term. But in addition to that, there was a strong relationship between one of the partners at the firm and one of our legal management team members. And what I learned through that process is that companies first need to figure out their appetite for change. We brought in those 2 firms I mentioned that had no contact with Adobe prior to our RFP. And it was really unfortunate because we asked the firms to go through our RFP process, which is an exceptionally tiring and draining process and requires a whole lot of resources on both sides, right? And so we asked these firms to invest in that process. And at the end of the day, I realized that my management team did not have the appropriate appetite for change, and they would not be willing to take a leap of faith with a firm into a preferred panel environment. And part of that was the fact that Adobe was really converging on the preferred panel. And so we ended up only selecting 2 firms from a US perspective. And so when you only say 2, it's really hard to stomach the amount of change and influence that has to happen when you're trying to introduce somebody that you don't know. I mean, you know something about, but you just don't have the relationship with. And so that was a key learning for me. And it really kind of tees up the bigger question, especially when I think of the audience, which is when you think from the outside in, how do key individuals go about creating those relationships initially so that you're not starting from that position of we've never done business with you, but yet we want to be on your preferred panel. And so much of it comes back to the concept of sort of just thinking differently, right? And one of the examples I usually use in that space is to say, and I'm in a great position to do this, I turn around to various law firms when somebody from a law firm hits me up and they're like, hey, how do we get our foot in the door with Adobe? I can very promptly turn right back to them and say, why don't you tell me what products of Adobe you use from a firm perspective, right? Because I want to see my law firms investing in Adobe as a customer just as much as I want to see them participating with me as a service provider. And so because of my technology space and our product space, we have an easy kind of use case, but a lot of times folks on the law firm side don't even think about that angle. And it's a really interesting way to get a foot in the door, because if I had a firm come to me and say, we are the largest proponents of using Adobe Sign. We love the technology. We love the change that it's been able to bring to our firm and to our clients, right? If I had a firm come say that to me, I guarantee you we were going to be sitting down and having a lengthy conversation.
That is only the second time in 105 interviews, 110 recorded, that has come up. Tune into our full discussion with Lisa Konie, episode 107 on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or leftfoot.com.